Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to be doing something a bit different. I'm going to be talking about a Yu-Gi-Oh card that got revealed some time ago. I'm not entirely sure how long ago, but I did get a message about it today, so I'm going to presume it was recently. It is a Frightfur monster. And for those that don't know, Frightfurs are a part of an archetype called Fluffles. They also encompass an archetype called Edge Imps. Technically, they're all the same archetype, but for naming consistency, they are technically different names. But at the same time, they're all technically Fluffles. And they are a fusion-based archetype, basically based around making giant monsters and beating the crap out of your opponent by running things over with them, which is always fun. But they did get a new card teased today, and I'm going to just go over it and speak my judgments on it as a very avid Fluffle player. I do love playing Fluffles. In general, I think Fluffles are a really, really cute-looking archetype, even the Frightfurs, but that's getting off topic. So today we're going to be looking at the new Frightfur called Frightfur Meister. Not sure how you pronounce that. Gonna be perfectly honest. It is one of the now 2 or 3 Frightfurs that are main deck monsters. The other two being Frightfurloid and technically Fluffle Patchwork, because it is treated as a Frightfur. And let's go over this thing. It is a level 8, scale 4, so it's a pendulum monster. That's adding to the third pendulum monster in the entirety of the archetype. The other two being OCG exclusives, Cotton Eater and Angel, both very good cards, by the way. And let's look at its pendulum effect. You can only use the pendulum like this card named once per turn. 1. You contribute 1 level 4 lower Frightfur, Fluffle, or Edge Imp monster, special summon 1 Fiend type monster from the deck that has the same level but a different card name that instead of the attributed monster effect. Here's why this is bad. You contribute 1 level 4 lower Frightfur, Fluffle, or Edge Imp. There are 2 Frightfurs in the entire game that you could actually contribute with that. Both of them you don't want to run because both of them are pretty bad. In terms of Fluffles, you don't want to tribute your Fluffles because none of them actually have any graveyard benefits outside of Wings, but Wings you already can set up via other methods. Now, Edge Imps, you can sacrifice Chain, and pretty much you don't want to sacrifice any of the other specific Edge Imps in that category, because Chain is the only one that actually has a graveyard effect that you can benefit from. Now, in terms of special summoning 1 female from the deck, this is very limited to, in terms of specifically in Arc, you have access to only Edge Imps. And I don't think Fluffle Patchwork is technically a fiend. It might be. I'll post it on screen if it is or not. But so what can you actually summon off this in terms of what can you actually summon off of its effect? You can summon Saw, you can summon Sabers, you can summon Chain, you can summon Tomahawk, and you can summon Frightfurloid. Maybe not Frightfurloid. Also another one I'm not entirely sure if it's a fiend or a beast. Could be either way, to be honest. Now, Saw only gets the effect of normal summon. Sabers wants to be in the graveyard, but not for the same reasons. Chain wants to be in the graveyard, but you're already sacrificing one to get in there. And Tomahawk is Tomahawk. So, in general, this pendulum deck, not very good. Let's move on to the monster effect. You can only use each of these monster effects on this card name once per turn. 1. During your main phase, you can special summon 1 level 4 lower Frightfur, Fluffle, or Edge monster from your deck. For the rest of this turn, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except fusion monsters. 2. Excuse me. Should be 2 or more Fiend monsters on your field. Special summon 1 Frightfur monster from your extra deck whose level is equal to the total of original levels of the attributed monsters, ignoring its summoning conditions. We're going to take this one step at a time. We'll look at 1, and then we'll look at 2. Let's start with 1. So, you can special summon 1 monster from your deck. 1 Frightfur, Fluffle, or Edge monster from your deck. And then you can only summon fusion monsters. This is bad for 2 reasons. 1, why would you only want to be locked into fusion monsters? There are a lot of good tech options that you can run in Fluffles that are not specifically fusion monsters. The one that springs to my mind is, what is it called? It's one of the Galaxy Eyes rank 7s that can rank up into other Galaxy Eyes monsters. I'll put it on screen now. And, of course, there's also Link monsters if you're doing a Link format, which obviously you are. But you know what I mean. If you wanted to make a Link play off it, then you can't. Now, what do you actually want to summon with this? In general, you want to summon 2 monsters with this in the Fluffle category, and none, technically 1 in the, maybe 2. A soft 2 in the Edge Imp category. Frightfurs, in general, you're never going to summon them off the main deck. There's pretty much no reason to ever summon a Frightfur out of main deck. Plus, it can't summon itself, because it's a level 8. So, yeah, you can't even play this and then summon another one. So what would you want to summon the Fluffle card? You would want to summon Fluffle Owl to get its very specific fusion effect, not its first effect, because that effect only triggers from the hand. But you can still do the pay 500 life points and fusion summon using materials you have in the hand or field. It might be hand. I know it's specifically on the field, but I don't know if it's in hand as well. I cannot remember at the current time. Yeah, so you can still do that. So you can summon that. The other one would be Fluffle Octopus, and it's Fluffle Octopus. Fluffle Octopus is not very good. Well, that's kind of harsh on it, but that's regardless. That's still the other monster you would want to summon off it. Now in Edge Imps, you could either summon Sabers or Tomahawk. Sorry, Sabers or another Chain. Chain is good. Sabers is not so much. The only reason you would want to summon Sabers instead of, say, Saw, because Saw only works specifically off of normal summons in general. I know I'm kind of repeating myself. I'm not good at talking. Oh well. Yeah, so Saw's effect only triggers off of normal summon, which means you can't actually do any of the fun stuff with Saw. Now, of course, Saw isn't running the TCG. I understand why. At the same time, I still have mad respect for Saw. It can do some wild stuff. So yeah, so in general, any of the monsters you want to summon, they're really limited to one, and that's Owl. Let's look at the second effect. Should be 2 or more fiend monsters on your field, special summon 1 Frightfur monster from your extra deck whose level equal to the total original level of the tributed monsters. This is bad. It doesn't sound bad. Look at it at face value, you think, oh man, yeah, cool. It's essentially a polymerization without, needing to play polymerization. Here's why it's bad. Tribute 2 or more monsters, which means you can't specifically tribute just one monster for whatever reason. So say you wanted to just summon a I'm trying to think off the top of my head now. I don't think is there a level 7 Frightfur? Hang on. Yes, there's one level 7 Frightfur. It's Leo. So for whatever reason, say you had a Cotton Eater on the field. Yes, I know OCG exclusives. Bear with me here. Say you had a Cotton Eater on the field, you wanted to tribute that. Well, you can't, because you need to have 2 or more monsters. You can't tribute the monster, or you can't tribute Meister itself, because it's a level 8, and the highest Frightfur level in Fusion deck is level 8. So what does this actually want you to do? Well, you have 2 options. One, you can tribute 2 Edge Imps to summon, at most, a Sabertooth or Chimera, which, sure, this is a Chimera for 2. It's the dream, right? Except, no, because Chimera is bad, and we shouldn't run it, because it's a bad card. So what does this actually want you to do? So I had to sit down and think about this for a good while. And by good while, I mean about 20 seconds. And when I came to the conclusion that this specific effect wants you to tribute your lower level Frightfurs to essentially do some backwards ass rank up spell. Think about it. 2 fiend monsters. The only fiend monsters in the entirety of the archetype are Edge Imps or Frightfurs. You can't tribute Fluffles off this, which means you can't summon, say, a dog and then tribute it with a chain. You can't. You just can't. You can tribute to Chain, and you can summon a Sabertooth. Yeah! Then you don't get the benefit of Sabertooth's effect. So, let's think about this, right? So what does this actually want you to do? What this card wants you to do is tribute, say, a sheep with a Sabers. Then you can make a Chimera. Chimera is bad. Then let's summon a Daredevil. Daredevil is bad. Then let's summon a Sabertooth. Sabertooth is bad unless you can get its effects, which you can't because it means you physically can't get its protection effects. And unless you have, and if this is your first Frightfur that you're summoning, what the fuck are you gonna revive? Nothing. Theoretically, you could revive Frightfur. Why would you? In general, this effect is just bad. There's nothing to do with it. You summon it, and then what? You use some form of backwards rank up magic to rank up a sheep to a Sabertooth? Theoretically, yeah, you could res the sheep, but there's no point. I'm gonna lay out how a general turn that in my experience goes. So you start your opening hand. In general, you do whatever form of hand setup you need to do. In my case, I do run Saw because I'm a madman. So I use Saw primarily as my toy vendor setup. It's toy vendor? Discard 1 card, draw 2, place 1 monster on top of your deck. Yes. Or place 1 Fluffle. Yeah, place 1 Fluffle monster on the top of or bottom of your deck. That's my toy vendor setup. Alright, so I do that. So here's what we can do now. We play toy. We either activate Bear's effect, send it to the graveyard, put down toy vendor, or just place toy vendor because we have it in our opening hand and we're sad about it. And then we do the toy vendor combo. Shit goes down, and then usually, for the most part, we have enough to summon 2 Frightfurs. If we're lucky, we have an instant fusion in hand, which means we can play Instant Fusion, summon Sheep, and yes, you can Instant Fusion Sheep. It's the only Frightfur in the entire archetype that you can Instant Fusion. Then you can Instant Fusion Sheep, and use that as a starting material for Sabertooth. Then you raise the Sheep, and then you continue your fusion plays and fuse your Sabertooths away and bring them back. And then you have more Sabertooths, and then you just suddenly have 3 Sabertooths and a Sheep on board, and your opponent scoops because they got really mad about it. Yeah, that's a general turn. In the terms of Frightfur Meester, well, it wants you to tribute to more monsters. So, regardless of if you summon a Sheep or not, you still have to have at least a Sabers on the board, or Saw, to, fuse this. How are you fusing the Sheep in the first place? Anyway, you have 2 options. One, Instant Fusion, or you're using Edge of Chain. You could technically Frightfur Fusion it, but then you're running Frightfur Fusion. Now, Frightfur Fusion isn't a bad card, but that's a discussion for a different day. I personally run it at 1, because, like I said, I run Saw. I'm a madman. Yeah, so what are you actually going to do with this effect? Why would you want to use this effect over, say, your general combos? You just really wouldn't. And that's really where the issue lies with this card. Its effects aren't good, and its monster effect isn't good, and its pendulum effect isn't good. Now let's actually talk about viability of this card. I'd run it at a hard 0, because it's really, really inconsistent, doesn't help the archetype, and overall does other cards' jobs worse. The level 8, so we can't actually summon it without Toy Vendor. Even in OCG, you can't pendulum this out because the highest pendulum scale Fluffles go to is 8, which means you can summon Con Eater, you can't summon Frightfur Meester. Pendulum scale 4, so you can't summon Dog, can't summon Chain, summon Tomahawk if you're that way. Just you can't summon pretty much the most important cards in the archetype. You can't summon your Searcher, you can't summon your, well, it's Chain. So yeah, what are you gonna do with this? Nothing. It's a bad card. Run it at 0. In fact, just don't even run it. Buy it only if you like the art. Otherwise, do not buy this card. It's not very good. Thanks for watching.